WSDA report out yesterday. How about weekly export sales report? That was out today. And let's see, flash sales out today. We got a few things to talk about. We've got an expert to help us break it down. We start with the corn market, though, and it was a friendly report from WSDA. Don't know that we would actually go as far as to say it was bullish, but very friendly. And December. And we had markets moving higher, by the way, yesterday. We had corn higher, we had beans higher, we had wheat higher. Cotton, for the most part, was, kind of higher. It's settled 1 point lower on the new crop. Canola, oats, they were all higher. Now the rice market has started giving back some of the gains. But since then, look what's happened to every one of these markets. December corn down 7.5, 473 1/4. We have beans, and we're down on the November at 11.82 1/2, off almost a penny here. The wheat market, here's Chicago, and we're a penny lower, 6.51 3/4. Kansas City, penny lower, 7.19 3/4. Cotton market, we're down about a penny at 83.39 on the December. And since we're here, let's see if we can find anything moving higher. Oh, look, canola higher. What about oats? Oats in mixed territory. And finally, the one that's been in the red the last two sessions, it's the rice market. We're mixed in the trade. Chip, I'm really stretching it here to find something positive as far as the markets. Chip Nellinger, owner, Blue Reef Agri Marketing. What are you watching?
Yeah, Tony, I think you hit the nail on the head. That report, while maybe not wildly bullish, I think it took away the worst fears that the market had. And so we were probably a little bit too low to going into that report, and corn kind of bounced back a little bit. So strong day yesterday, giving some of those gains back today. I don't think it's the end of the world. There's still been some beneficial rains around, so that's going to be the fight with the market. Have these rains since August 1st that have been around portions of the Corn Belt helped add any yield, solidify what's there? Do we go back up in yield on the September report because of some of these rains? That's what the market's trying to figure out right now. But, I think all told, after having about 24 hours to kind of reflect on that, probably about as good a case as we could have had with acreage going up. The carryout didn't expand a lot on the beans, and the demand's still there. So I think we have good floors underneath these markets for the time being, Tony.
All right, since we're talking beans, I just brought up the 6-month here on new crop beans. By the way, another flash sale to China today, 4.6 million bushels. That's new crop. Add it to what we've already had this week, we're looking at 18 to 19 million bushels. And we're seeing that backed up in the weekly export sales report. Over the past 6 months, 70 cents higher with the new crop bean contract. Was the high back in July? Is that what we'll look back and say, okay, that was it? Or is there maybe still some room to run higher?
Tony, I think there's some room to run higher. It kind of depends on your time frame, though. If you need the beans to go, at harvest time, we may be running out of time a little bit. If you've got a longer-term horizon and can kind of hold out post-harvest into early winter, I think that there's a high probability that this bean market will make higher highs eventually once we get this harvest wrapped up. There's still so many uncertainties with Brazil. Are they getting enough fertilizer into that country because of the Middle East issue? Is El Nino going to affect their season down there in their production? And our demand is just fantastic. So, I would bet higher highs to come, but it may be a test of patience.
Okay, and then I think the last one here for you, basis. A lot of times we'll look at markets. We're looking at canola right now. I guess if I had the wheat market up, maybe we can bring wheat up here. Let's get back over to, for example, September hard red winter wheat. We're seeing trade here at 720 1/2. So the futures market says, here's the value. but actually selling it at $7.20 1/2. What are we seeing on the basis side for our row crops?
Yeah, all over the board. Depends on where you're at. Wheat is probably the hardest answer there. It still, depends again on local supply. Obviously, the Southern Plains has some production issues out there. I think longer term, I think the case can be made because of what we have talked about with demand and crop size. That basis across the board, corn, beans, and wheat even, have some room to improve, especially as you get out into winter and next spring, because the demand base is so large. World supplies are shrinking, and that's a good combination for both price and basis, Tony.
And one other thing maybe weighing in on the market as well, we've got the Black Sea supply disruptions, but it looks like Ukraine's reached out through a third party to Russia and said, hey, maybe it's time to put the gloves back on some infrastructure hits here when we're talking about grain, ports, terminals, and some of our shipping there as well. We'll see whether or not that actually goes through. All right, Chip, quick break. Back with more markets on Market Day Report. We talk about these reports. How about cattle on feed? We'll get that cattle on feed report 1 week from tomorrow. Of course, those are the reports that come out after the close, so no trade until the following Monday. I guess there's good things and bad things about that, right? All right, let's get to live cattle futures. We're down now $3.10 here on the August contract at 227.47. The October more active at 221.15. It's down 265. Over to the feeders. Front month, August expires later this month. 343.5 off 285. October 115 lower, 329.25. And we've got the hog trade. Is it still in the red? And the answer, yes. Chip Nellinger, owner, Blue Reef Agri Marketing. Haven't seen any cash trade yet, Chip, but I can't help but think we might be steady, maybe lower.
Tony, I think steady would be a moral victory. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not lower by a couple bucks. Pretty poor technical performance in this cattle market. We had some rally in it, hit some key upside retracement levels, and then just fell apart yesterday. The feeder cattle market back to like figuring out what corn's doing. For several years, feeders almost didn't matter what corn was doing. Seems like it's back with the correlation of old now. When corn is higher, feeders are lower. I think that's part of what hurt us yesterday. But pretty ugly performance for the week, it looks like, here on the cattle complex.
Okay, and how often do we look at some of the outside markets and how they could be affecting, let's say, cattle or consumer and demand? But I mentioned earlier some Black Sea supply disruptions. We've got the Strait of Hormuz. We've got a lot of things going on in the energy markets. Are you watching that?
Absolutely, Tony. It seems like crude oil has kind of found a nice level here at $80. Unfortunately, historically, that's not $100, but historically, $80 is still pretty elevated. And so, hurts consumer pocketbooks. Definitely may be a factor in this cattle trade and how weak it's been. But longer term, that's still going to press some demand on the biodiesel side and the ethanol side. So I guess the silver lining of these higher energy prices is should solidify, our corn and bean demand base here domestically.
Yeah, and we got EIA petroleum stocks numbers out. They came out roughly an hour ago, and so we'll have a highlight for you from that coming up in just a few minutes. Here's diesel, and we're moving lower after 2 straight sessions of higher trade. Chip, great to see you virtually. Okay, great to hear you. Chip Nellinger, owner of Blue Reef Agri Marketing.
Well, those energy prices affecting everything.